happened today?
Well, thanks, Valent. Well, we're expecting the Deputy President to have meetings with several people. The first meeting, we are told, will be with the family of the Lesotho ex-army chief, General Maparangwa Mahao, who was murdered last week. We believe that the family has a completely different story to tell to that which the government has told. So, and the family would like to, in fact, wants to cooperate with an outside investigation because we believe they do not trust the government authorities here. So that will be the first meeting that the Deputy President will have. But then later on or throughout the day, he'll be holding meetings with the government, the Prime Minister, but also members of the opposition. So it's a whole series of meetings that are going to take place throughout the day for him to get first-hand information on what exactly led to or what happened around the death of General Maparangwa Mahao, but perhaps more importantly, what exactly is happening on the ground. What are the issues? What actually happened to spark the fear that is now gripping especially leaders of opposition parties?
Vuyo, you and I are speaking in almost a carbon copy of the developments in Lesotho that we did just a couple of weeks ago. I mean, what actually happened? Because this is not Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa's first visit to Lesotho, and he was there a couple of weeks ago. What happened in the weeks thereafter that have now led to the same thing, going for meetings and having to calm the situation there?
Well, I mean, you will recall that the leader of the opposition, former Prime Minister Tom Thabane, has been fleeing. He's been in South Africa. He's been to Botswana as well, and so is his partner in the coalition, Matijwa Metsing of the Lesotho Congress of Democracy. You will perhaps recall as well that when the AU summit was in South Africa, we did speak to the Prime Minister about what was happening. He seemed unconcerned because I remember at the time who said, but aren't you worried and aren't you going to have an urgent meeting with the leader of the opposition? And he seemed to dismiss what was happening as sort of drama that really former Prime Minister Tom Thabane is known for. And one of the things, or perhaps one of the main things that sparked the fear at the time, we were told, was that he had decided, the government here that is, under Prime Minister Mosisili, had decided to bring back General Kamodi, who was the army chief. You'll recall that in the peace accord that was negotiated by or overseen by Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, General Kamodi was actually asked to go away, basically, and which he did. But for him to return, I think in under 100 days after, the election was, I think, as far as many people saw it, something of a provocation, but also perhaps an insensitivity on the part of the government to return him and so early. And you will perhaps recall also that there was a mutiny that was reported at the time, which Prime Minister Mosisili said, had nothing to do with General Kamodi. But there was uncertainty at the time, and one would perhaps dare say that there was a lack of leadership because issues were not clarified, fears that were clearly there and expressed by such people as former Prime Minister, but the former Prime Minister were actually unattended to. So it was business as usual. But not only that, but to bring back General Kamudi was, I think, in certain people's view, something that was, so soon and without any explanation and without having addressed what was known as really, the army in this country is known to take positions to back certain political parties. So those issues were still not addressed after the election. So for him to have just been allowed to be reinstalled as the chief of the army was perhaps a bit insensitive and may have sparked quite a lot of the fears that we're seeing now. Some of them may well be unjustified, but without anyone having spoken about them, having addressed them, and without the concerns of people within the army having been addressed.
Vuyo, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're going to have to check in with you a little bit later on. Sorry to interrupt you and to stop you there. We are going to be crossing to you a little bit later on because, of course, this is a multi-layered situation, and we'll be getting a little bit more insight from you a little bit later on. To wrap up this news bulletins, let's bring you your market indicator.